Y'all, listen. If there is one thing I've learned, adversity does not build character. Adversity reveals character. I'm Barbie Bassett, and I invite you to join me and my friends, Traci Lee and Traci Lee, as we peel back those adversity layers to see what else is revealed. Hey, y'all, listen here. Oh my goodness. We have got a fantabulous, how you like that word?
Nice.
A fantabulous podcast today. This is actually part 2. I've got my good friend Traci Lee here with me from your hometown country, US 96.3. I'm sounding
Barbie.
like I'm on the radio
You
now, aren't I,
do.
Tracy?
Yes. Would you like a job?
And then, of course, please welcome back Gary Mays with us again. Gary was with us on our last podcast. It was so good that we said, let's do it again.
Well, thank you for having me back. I feel like I'm one pair of boots short for this country experience.
I don't know. I'm telling you, we had so much fun with you with the last.
You
like that?
I do.
Like that?
Come on.
And then, of course, we are missing our good friend, Traci Lee with Dark Horse Press. She is on assignment today, hence the reason why Gary is filling in. But we must say also hello to our producer, our Daniel in the Lion's Den, Daniel Anderson with Audio Alchemy Productions. He is the man who makes us look and sound good. Might need to give you another $50 bill as a tip to make us look even better. But thank you, Daniel. We appreciate that. Such good conversation with part 1 that let's continue this. Of course, we've said we could probably have a part 10 and a part 25 and 30, but let's go on to part 2. You have been talking about dying to self. And for those of us who grew up in the church, we've heard that all our life, and I think we understand what that is, but there may be some people out there listening that they don't really know what that is. What is dying to ourselves?
Let me preface as I roll here for just a moment that I'm 69. I've been a believer, a follower of Jesus since I was 13, and I'm still figuring some things out too.
Yes.
So I'm still in process, and I've handled the word for a long time. I don't have all the answers. I mean, the line is I don't even have all the questions. So everybody relax. I'll do the best I can to be faithful here. Dying to self, for me, and the way I explain it, and my heart is to be simple. It is to find handles for people to walk with Jesus. So I trusted him. I recognized I was a sinner. I admitted that. That was obvious. The Spirit convicted me as a 13-year-old. I said, God, I want to follow you and trust you, and I want to nail that down. And I did, publicly, to my friends, and it became the grounding value of my life. How do I die to self every day? We talked last episode about your yes on the table.
Mm-hmm.
And it is that practice all of the time of saying yes to God. And the God who loves us, who receives us, lives in us through the Spirit. So I'm thinking Romans 8. Paul's writing in Romans, this big treatise. He's telling us we're all sinners. Nobody has an excuse, for all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. The wages of sin is death, but the free gift of God is eternal life in Jesus Christ. And by the time you get to Romans 8, it's a big turn. And Paul, this is a huge chapter, but Paul says, there's therefore now no condemnation for those who are in Christ. So beat yourself up and live in the Spirit. Here's what he says: because through Christ Jesus, the law of the Spirit who gives life has set you free from sin and death. A little later, he says, the mind governed by the flesh is death, but the mind governed by the Spirit is life and peace. So dying to yourself is saying yes to the Spirit of God, and it really is just saying yes, looking to his love letter to us, the Bible, and it's receiving this life, this Spirit that brings life and peace. And Traci, you were beautifully elegant in the way you described dying to self and your conversation, kind of the wrestle with God at some point, a memorable marker moment in your life. What we're all looking for is life and peace. And I don't know who all's listening, of course, but there are going to be people who in their car or at their desk or when they're floating through podcast are going to say to themselves, if they're honest, man, I really need life and peace. Because I don't want to be spicy here, but life sucks and then you die if you don't know Jesus and you don't have life and peace.
Yeah.
And that's what the Spirit of God does when we say yes to Him. So you read the Word. Prayer sounds so, is that a Renaissance thing, Gary? Is that from the Dark Ages? It is not. It is a communion, a conversation with God. And that's the place you find life and peace. The Word, His Spirit working in us, saying yes to Him. My yes is on the table, God, whatever you want me to do.
In an everyday scenario, I think about ways that we can die to self. Case in point, you've got a boss who's got to handle a difficult situation at work. Dying to yourself as that boss, saying, Lord, how do I handle this situation with this employee? Instead of doing what I want to do and what the rules say to do, how can I die to self in that? You've got a relationship, a marriage relationship, or, some other type of romantic relationship where you butt heads. You know what you want to say, and you know what is valid to say and truth to say. But, Lord, how can I die to myself? Teach me to die to myself and say what you want me to say instead of what I want to say. Think about what we deal with on a daily basis, Traci, with social media warriors. And, you deal with it too. People come at you on social media.
Yeah.
Or they want to correct you on something. What do you want to type back?
Oh, I have several times typed it
Yes.
out. I just haven't sent it.
Yes.
Well, not all the time. I've got a 97% rate of not. And the times that I do, I feel immediately like, oh, why did I do that? Why did I do that? I always regret it. Most of the time I regret it.
Most of the time.
But I understand that, and I know it sounds good when you're having a good day okay, I need to do what the Lord wants me to do here. But if you're in the heat of the moment, how do you remember that? How do you pull on that? Okay, this is what I need to do. This is where I need to go. And then again, when you're in a relationship, how do you draw the line between they're not going to walk over me and abuse me this way, but I also need to die to myself? That is the biggest challenge for me. And I know I'm totally forking the road here, but how do you set a boundary and still be considered godly? Because the boundary may be offensive to the person that's crossing it.
Boundaries. Didn't we just jump into another topic?
We did
right
just
there?
jump
Sorry.
into another topic
Sorry.
right there. But you had mentioned in part one of this last time we were here talking about the fruit of the Spirit.
Right.
And showing the fruit of the Spirit in those types of scenarios where you don't want to be walked over. There was an old song, y'all, and I can't remember if this is in the Baptist hymnal or not, but there was a line in there that says, "They will know we are Christians by our love." And that's what's coming to my mind right now. I may not feel it. It may not be warranted in the moment.
Yeah.
But that's what I think about. I don't know, Brother Gary. Here I am.
There's the brother again. I was a big fan of the What Would Jesus Do movement conceptually. That's a tricky thing when you wear the WWJD bracelet, because you can play all kinds of games to get to what Jesus would do. Because what you perhaps would need to do, I was just looking at 1 Timothy, don't rebuke an older man harshly, but exhort him as if he were your father. Treat younger men as brothers, older women as mothers, and younger women as sisters with absolute purity. I mean, the Bible's full of real, practical, this is how you get along. Romans says, as much as is possible, be at peace with all men. But if you play the What Would Jesus Do in your head, you can say, but he turned over some tables.
I'm not going to lie, that's the first thing I thought. That's
Yeah.
First thing I thought.
Yeah.
So,
And Jesus was full of grace and truth.
mhm.
And usually when you're attacked, and I've enjoyed my share on social media, you can't be a believer, you can't be real, and I don't post much, honestly, outside of my family, but I've been attacked. And I've had some moments. And the tendency is to want to respond with truth instead of grace.
Mhm.
And ultimately, God demonstrates his love to us in grace. While we were still sinners,
Right.
he died for us, which is a little, and I know this is simple. My theological friends are going to slay me, but while we were yet sinners, he didn't correct us first. He loved us. And the correction is the work of the Spirit in us to conform us to the image of Christ, which is a process that God graciously takes the time to achieve. And that's simple. I walk with Jesus. You told a great story, Barbie, about a friend of yours who has some years and some wisdom in walking with Jesus. What does she say?
She says that she wakes up every morning and instead of thinking, God, help me do this, please fix this in my life, she just says, Lord, what can I do with you today? What can I do for you today? And it's all about co-laboring with the Lord. And I thought, wow, how easy is that? How simple is that to ask, what can I do for you today, Lord? But I think what you just said goes back around to this full circle moment from what is dying to yourself. It's going back and remembering what you just said, that it is so easy for us to be in a situation, be in the heat of a dilemma or a challenge, and us want to give the truth instead of giving the grace. That truly is dying to self when you have the choice to give grace as opposed to rebuke or correction. I mean, I deal with this quite a bit, and I know both of you do, when you know that someone is wrong and you want to do the convicting,
Yeah.
but you're like, wait, that's not what my purpose is.
The dilemma, the challenge, and I totally agree with you. The challenge is we are required to love well, which requires us to bring truth
Yes.
in some circumstances. Sometimes our truth is actually our perspective. And I just said our truth. I almost gagged when I said that.
Yeah.
Because we live in the culture of my truth.
Yeah.
Your
which,
truth,
which
everybody
is
else's
baloney.
truth. Yes.
Yeah.
You know, it's either true or it's not, people. But that's the examination of my heart and my motivation in those moments. You know, am I correcting you to my perspective, or is this actually a biblical, not hill to die on, but is it a biblical mandate that the truth needs to be present in this conversation or this conviction or whatever?
So do I hear you saying that one way that you can know if you are having an active relationship with the Lord is the fact that you do die to yourself, not just once a day, not just once a week, but you try to, I mean, we're all imperfect humans, but that's your first thought, or at least that should be our first thought is, okay, Lord, how do you want me to respond? Because if I'm responding the way I want to do, it's not going to be very good. Is that what I'm hearing you saying?
I think that's a great starting place. I think it partners with conviction when you mess it up.
Yeah.
When God, I don't normally use these kind of lines, but they're so descriptive. When the Lord taps you on the shoulder and says, that wasn't me.
Yes.
Or what you did not honor, represent, speak as I would speak.
Yes.
When he convicts. So I'm living in Romans 8 today for some reason. I've read the mind governed by the flesh is death, but the mind governed by the Spirit is life and peace. And a little later, he's saying you're not in the realm of the flesh, but the realm of the Spirit. And then verse 14, he says, for those who are led by the Spirit of God are the children of God.
Mm.
And Romans 8 says, you know you belong to him when your spirit bears witness with his spirit. And I think that's an ongoing bearing.
Mm-hmm.
I think and part of it comes from conviction of truth or sin and of righteousness, as the Spirit does. We've made the everyday walking out faith really complicated.
Yeah.
I had a great friend who's an incredible man, but as a college student, in order to meet some guys, he would ask them, he put on what back in those days were heavy-rimmed chemistry glasses and a bad brown suit, and would knock on the doors of people in the dorm and say, "Excuse me, brother, are you pre-pro on anti-part-time or quasi-millennial?" And he would ask these crazy questions to begin a conversation. There are so many people who have divided the Christian life into those kind of things. Where are you about the rapture?
Yeah.
How do you feel about inerrancy in this passage? What about the difficult portions of the book of Hebrews? You know, we have a checklist. And really, at the end of the day, I look at people who have honoring and reverence, obviously, for God in their speech and their life, and who love well, committed to the truth. The fruit of the Spirit, again, evidenced in their life. They live according to the Spirit, not according to the flesh. It's just not, and I'm sorry, I'm sounding simplistic. I live in the real world.
Yeah.
I've lived almost 70 years. Life's hard. We live in a broken, fallen, difficult, imperfect world at best. Having said that, walking in the Spirit, dying to self, being a real Christian is surrendering and saying yes every day, all the time, to the presence and the Spirit of God, I think.
I can see your wheels
Yeah.
turning.
Well, I was just thinking when you were talking about, dying to yourself and living that life, imagine if you had to live your faith and share your faith, but you couldn't say a word.
Yeah.
Would people know what you believed? I have in the past couple of years developed what I can only consider as a God-given love for Asian people. Like, I am obsessed with all things China. I never thought that I would be. I love those people. I am trying to learn the language. I don't know what it is. Like, it came out of nowhere. And I reached out to a pastor here who is from China. He has a church in Ridgeland. And we were talking about, I'm like, I had no idea. When I think about China, communist China, it was supposed to be gray and people didn't have any, rights to do anything. It is so not that. The culture is not. They're very progressive. They're people very colorful, tons of history. And I asked him about faith in China because, he's got a mom and dad and a brother that are still there. And I asked if they were believers, and he said yes, that the state is very involved in the church, as you can imagine. They do, I think he said it was 3 Square Church, where there are certain things that they have to go over. They are paying attention to what the message is in the church, the state is. That's where his parents go. And he said his brother was a believer as well. And I asked if they could talk about their faith with other people, and he said, yeah. You can, but it's not like we do here where it's the EE or you're going, on Monday night visitations and you're doing that thing. And he, I asked him, I said, well, if your brother is a believer and he is living his life differently, someone notices and ask him, what is different about you? Can he then share the faith with them? And he said, well, yeah, he can, because they, depending on whoever the leader is in that city, what they think that would be how far he could go with it and do those sorts of things. But I've thought about that in a country that if you couldn't speak it, would your life be enough to make a difference in your responses, in the things that you choose to say and that you don't choose to say, the things that you choose to be involved in and that you're not involved in? Would it be enough? Only if it's done with love and not with where you're being almost like condemnation or looking down your nose at somebody like, shouldn't do that.
Yeah.
That's terrible. But from a place of love, it's like, no, I just don't think that's for me. You
Yeah.
know, and you just build those relationships at that ground floor level. What an opportunity
Oh, yeah.
to do that. And I'm not just talking about China. I'm talking about the public school system, and I'm talking about some workplaces. There are some things here that we can't say because we will offend somebody or it goes against company policy. But the way that you choose to live your life, is it enough to invoke a conversation? Is it enough?
And could it be that the biggest threat to believers isn't necessarily persecution, but it's comfort?
Yeah, that's a great point.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great point.
It's being quiet when we could be more vocal and living our life in a way that when you're around people, they walk away saying, something's different there. That, again, goes back to the fruit of the Spirit.
Fruit of the Spirit. You know, Traci, the interesting conversation with your Chinese pastor friend. You said at the end of one of your sentences, which I was waiting for because I didn't want to jump in because I have zero expertise, but there are portions of China that are much, much more strict than others.
Yes.
So when you said it depends on the leader in that city, I mean, there are cities where the church is entirely underground.
Yeah.
And there are others that have a great deal of tolerance. But there are a cool billion Chinese.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of diversity there.
Right.
Yeah.
In how they're able to share the gospel.
Such good conversation in dying to ourselves and doing that literally on every single minute, every single day, and not just when it's convenient.
Yeah. I've got a working theory that comes to the surface as an illustration with the World Cup. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
So, and it reminds me, or I'm reminded of that by your premise. Could we live in such a way people would see the difference in us? Would they recognize the character of God in us, the way we honor? I've got a working theory that's shared by others that we have residual gospel Christ influence in this nation, secular though we are by design, that results in the kind of experiences that the people from all over the world had here for the World Cup, because they were honored. There was hospitality they'd not seen. There was graciousness. There was success in the best sense of the word. There was a welcoming. There was safety that many of them don't experience in their countries. And beyond the love for ranch dressing, and all the crazy things we saw, it's been my premise forever that, and you see it in the South, in the Bible Belt, which is a cliche that many times is used negatively, but I really believe it extends generationally into hospitality and graciousness and service, customer service, not because you have to, but there's a genuine joy in serving in the South so often, that kind of Southern hospitality. And the cliche I use, which I believe is true, is you're never more like Jesus than when you serve. And I think people all over the world saw that genuinely and felt that. And that's would we have a testimony if we didn't speak the truth, at least initially? And ultimately, you can't just love, you have to get to the gospel at some point.
Yeah. That's a great way to kind of wrap this episode up, is that you need to eventually get to the gospel.
Yes.
So good. Thank you, Gary.
My pleasure. Thank you,
being
Barbie.
our guest.
Traci?
So just in case, and I know that I'm kind of throwing something out there for you, just in case someone wants to reach out to you, maybe there's a church or a group that would love to have you come be a part of a session, is there any way that people can find you?
Absolutely. Thank you for asking. And I do a number of different things. I do parenting conferences. I do marriage weekends. I'm kind of having the time of my life in that regard. And I have people who call me about French camp. Increasingly you've got grandparents who are raising their grandkids, and they get to a stage and they need a fresh start, a break, some additional boundaries, whatever. I'm real simple. Gary, Gary, at Gary Maze, Maze, one word, GaryMaze.com.
Gary at
GaryMaze.com.
GaryMaze.com.
Too easy.
Too easy.
Yeah.
Well, this has been so fun. Thank you for
me as
sharing.
well. Thank you, Barbie.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Tracy.
Thanks, Barb.
Good to see you again. And we will see y'all again on another time. We're going to head on over to our Patreon channel just to kind of continue the conversation just a little bit. We will see you again on another episode of Y'all Listen Here.